Welcome back to another episode of ADK Talks. I'm Jane, along with my co-host and brother Steve. Say hi, Steve.
Hello.
And we bring you the best of the Adirondacks, whether it's a place to stay, eat, shop, or something to experience. We are your guides to discovering the amazing things to do in New York State's 6 million acre Adirondack Park. Listener, every summer, the quiet towns of Saranac Lake and Lake Placid erupt in a joyful chaos of scrums, camaraderie, and community pride. It's called the Can-Am Rugby Tournament. This year it's happening July 25th through 27th. And it's been a beloved Adirondack tradition for over 50 years now. Whether you're a diehard rugger or just rugby curious, today's episode has something for everyone. We are thrilled to welcome Cameron Moody, director of Can-Am Rugby. Cameron, welcome to the ADK Talks podcast.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
We're so pleased you're here. Listener, Cameron is probably the longest distance guest we've ever had. He's currently deployed with the National Guard in the Horn of Africa. So he's joining us from an entirely different time zone. We want to, number one, thank him for his service. And also
Absolutely.
Thank you for being here with us today. So Cameron, if you could, let's just take a minute to talk about the Can-Am Rugby Tournament's origin story. I mean, this is the 51st year, and it's become quite the event in the Tri-Lakes region of the Adirondacks. How did it all start?
So it started back in the early 70s. Saranac Lake Mountaineers Rugby Club was born, and a few of their players, led by Jan Plumidor, they were sitting around one day and decided that they were going to start hosting a tournament. So they started off with a very small event with 8 teams from the upstate area in New York and some teams from Canada. And just like that, the Can-Am was born.
That's amazing. You know, I didn't even know about rugby till I went off to college, I think, in, we won't say what year. But what was the scene like back then? Where did they draw competition from? Was it still pretty nascent? What was it like?
So a lot of the connections that Jan had was from his time at West Point.
Okay.
So military academy there. And then there was the old Blue Rugby Club out of the New York City area. And of course, a lot of teams in the Canada area, Ottawa. They had some connections through rugby growing up and college, that kind of stuff, and just started piecing these teams together. And of course, the military scene, especially back then, was very heavy rugby. So a lot of connections through that. Over the years, it has kind of spiraled into the huge event that it is today. But a lot of the teams that started the event in the 70s still come back every year. So
wow,
it's kind of nice to see that tradition of it all.
That's amazing. And listener, to give you an idea of the scope, this year there will be, 110 plus teams competing?
So, yes, last year was the largest we've ever had, with about 120 teams for our 50th anniversary. This year, right now, registrations are still open. We're sitting at about 110. Open will be somewhere 112, 116, somewhere in that range when it's all done.
Wow, that's incredible. And they're from, as you said, Canada and all over the U.S.?
Yeah, for sure. We actually got a couple teams coming from Texas this year, up and down the East Coast. The East Side Hyenas traveling from Detroit. Last year we had a couple teams from California, so it's pretty spread out.
Wow, that's incredible. How has the spirit of the tournament changed over the years, or do you think it's really remained very true to its original roots?
I think one of the great things about our event, and it may be overlooked sometimes, and I think is a big part of the reason why it still is what it is that we have stayed true to what it began with. It's just a volunteer-run group looking to host a great rugby tournament. And we've been lucky enough over the years to be able to expand that into truly supporting our community and giving back to youth groups and things like that. But the spirit of the tournament is still all about coming together and playing rugby. We do our best to offer an affordable event to the teams that are coming and make it as much fun as it can be. But it is not, the professional event that you would think. It's really a big family. Everybody comes together. Everybody knows everybody. We all support each other, play hard on the field, but then we all play hard off of it as well.
Right. It's kind of, I think I read somewhere that rugby is considered sort of the gentleman's sport, that you play hard, but when you get off the field, people are friendly and social, and you may be a diehard rugger on the field, but you're a gentleman afterward.
It is a very unique sport in that way.
Right. Or gentlewoman too, because
Yeah.
it's women and men who play in the tournament. And you mentioned something too that I also really want to highlight is how much this event directly supports youth in the Tri-Lakes community too. That the money that's raised and the funds that are raised stay in the area too, which I think is really incredible. Can you talk about some of the programs that the Can-Am Rugby supports?
Yeah, so we are completely nonprofit. So everything that we don't spend on putting the event on goes back into the communities. We do have a request process where youth groups, community events, anybody can reach out and ask for support. And over the years, we've supported the Saranac Lake football program all the way from kindergarten up through the varsity team, youth hockey, baseball, volleyball, basketball, basically any sport in the area at one time or another we've helped with. We support the Saranac Lake Winter Carnival, of course. We've given to different events, cycle ADK and things like that, different events that have come through the area over the years. And then, of course, we do scholarships for students every year. So we do a scholarship for all the local schools, Tupper Lake, Saranac Lake, Lake Placid, Paul Smith College, North Country Community College. So we really do our best to kind of spread everything around the entire community. And we try our very best to never say no to anybody in need. So it has gotten harder over the years as our expenses have kind of gone crazy in the last few years, really since COVID. But we fundraise hard. We do everything we can to try and support the event and then give back to our local communities.
That's awesome. How did you first get involved in the sport?
Well, I was just out of high school and kind of, sports were done. And I had a few friends that were playing and they started asking me to come out, try it. And I kind of kept pushing it off. I knew nothing about it. I'd been to Can-Am, so I'd watched the games, but I didn't really know all that much. And I finally went to practice a few times and just fell in love with it. So it's been about 17 years now I've been playing, and hopefully I'll be playing in the over 60s division at Can-Am's one day.
Is that the old boys division? And is that what that is?
So now we currently have over 35s for both men and women. It's
Okay.
the first time that we've had an over 35s for the women this year. So that's exciting. And then we also have over 45s, 50s, 55s, and over 60s for the men's side. So.
Wow, that's amazing. And you mentioned your wife, she plays as well, and you have three kids. Are they all playing? So the family
so my wife
affair?
plays. She says she's retiring, but she says that every year, and then she's back out on the field. And the kids, there's no real competitive youth rugby in the area just yet, but we have hosted several youth clinics that they have been at, and we'll be hosting a couple youth clinics during the event again this year too, free for any local youth or any youth at all that are in the area. So they'll definitely be there as well.
That's amazing. That's awesome. We've attended the tournament a few times. We have a cousin who plays competitively, but it's got a great vibe. But I would love to hear, your perspective on what it's like to be in Saranac Lake or Lake Placid. I know you're local to the area, but what's it like during tournament weekend? What can fans and players and first timers expect when they come?
Got a special buzz about it, that's for sure. It's busy for, especially for Saranac Lake, the flood of people that come into town for this weekend. And, the great thing about it is a lot of them come for a week or 10 days. They're making it a family trip now for them, especially a lot of the teams that are coming from further away. So one thing that we've added in the last few years is the Can-Am Carnival. We host it down in Riverside Park, right downtown Saranac Lake. and it's a free family friendly event for everyone. So even if you're just there to watch rugby because you know somebody that's playing, well, you can go down there. We host entertainment, couple bands each day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We had bouncy houses for the kids, and we invite all the local community groups to come out if they want to use it for a fundraiser. And so we've had caricature drawings, we've had face painting and cotton candy and all kinds of fun stuff going on down there. So the whole weekend is action packed, whether it's on the field or off of it. So it's definitely a pretty exciting time to be in the area.
That's awesome.
It is.
You mentioned that you were going to have some teams from Texas. Do you ever hear about, players who are seeing the Adirondacks for the first time? What's their impression for the folks that are coming? You mentioned Detroit or from far away. What's their impression?
They love the area, of course, and they're constantly asking what else to do, right? If they have a few hours between games, where can they go jump in the lake or, a mountain to hike on their time off or things like that. And especially the old boys, they play on Friday and then they have Saturday off. And then they play again on Sunday for the championship round. So a lot of times on Saturday, they'll definitely stick around, watch some rugby, but they'll be out on the golf courses or rent a boat, go for a hike, different things like that. So it's amazing that we have so much to offer them. I love seeing them come back at other times of the year. I'll get text messages and phone calls from guys all the time saying, hey, we're in town to go skiing or go hiking or fishing or whatever, different things. So it's always nice to see the rugby players back other times rather than just rugby weekend.
Awesome. During the tournament, are there any, signature events or things that fans shouldn't miss?
So of course, Championship Sunday is something you don't want to miss. We've kind of grown that into more of an event where we're live streaming the games now and putting those online, really trying to showcase rugby in Saranac Lake. Can-Am Carnival over the last few years is something we've been pushing huge for everybody, whether you're a kid or, a local or a tourist or whatever. There's something for everybody there. And just the camaraderie of it all, whether you're sitting by the lake or you're at the bar after or going out to dinner, whatever it is, getting together with your rugby family and friends is pretty amazing.
That is awesome. And as you said, it is one of the things I really appreciate about the tournament is that it has a very strong social component of it. And I think in this area where there are lots of different sporting events that happen, especially in Lake Placid, I think it's really great that people can play hard on the field and get along really well off the field. I think that's awesome.
You mentioned it with the carnival, but you don't charge admission for any of the games, do you?
No, everything's free to come and watch the game. So even if you're not a player or, you're just looking for something to do for the weekend, it's funny, actually, there's a group of residents that live near the fields in Saranac Lake that I know don't play, but they every year are at the fields and just kind of hanging out, maybe eating something from our food vendor that's something different in town for the weekend, just enjoying the atmosphere. So it's everything is free other than the teams paying their registration fees to come. And it's definitely a different weekend of entertainment for everybody.
It is, because it's nice. You can come and go. You can go from Saranac over to Lake Placid and watch on the fields there and then go back. And it's probably the most lively both Saranac Lake and Lake Placid are at night than any time of year.
For sure. And along with that, we're this year we're hosting wheelchair rugby in the Saranac Lake Civic Center.
Oh wow.
Fantastic.
So we did it years ago and kind of bounced around trying to find different locations, but we're excited to have it back in Saranac Lake, and that is something pretty amazing to watch if you're looking for something to do on the weekend. These guys are great athletes. They may be handicapped, but they're competitive and they are strong and skilled. And it's definitely a different sport, but it's pretty wild to watch and very entertaining.
Why don't we mention your website so people, if they want to see what the schedule is or see what's activities that are going
Yeah,
on?
for sure. So our website's super simple. It's canamrugby.com.
Well, that's a tough one.
And of course we have our Facebook and social media accounts that are Can-Am Rugby Tournament. And we do our best to stay up to date on all that stuff, posting the schedules and the different events, especially on social media. It's today's world to reach as many people as possible. So
Yeah. And you mentioned that you're going to be streaming. Where will you be doing that?
So we don't have the link set up just yet, but we will broadcast that. We use Good Guy Productions of Saranac Lake, and he will do all the live streaming. And then he has a YouTube channel that he streams
so
the games on that
YouTube.
for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
listener, definitely check out the website. There's lots of great information there also about the history of the tournament. And like all things, sometimes Facebook and Instagram are the places to get the most up-to-date information too. So we follow all of your social media profiles, but thanks for providing that. The tournament, as you've told us, has really grown. How do you keep this event of such a huge magnitude running smoothly year after year?
It is quite a challenge. We relied for so long on volunteerism, and unfortunately that is definitely dropping off in some areas. But we are lucky in the area that we do have great groups and people that are willing to help out when we need it. We've got an excellent volunteer board of directors that hop in and do a lot of the work all year long, as far as just kind of planning things ahead and doing all the scholarships and donation requests and all that stuff that comes along. And the communities that we live in are excellent, and they want the tourism and they want the events. So working with the different communities, the different areas around to make everything come together is truly special in our area. It is a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, right? We love doing it. We love that this event is the biggest, longest running amateur rugby tournament in the country. I mean, that is something to be proud of in itself. So we just, some days are tougher than others, but we keep chugging along, and maybe it's the rugby player spirit too, that nothing is too hard for us, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, we pull it off year after year. Glad we do.
That's great. Anything new or evolving at the tournament? Any new innovations or changes, or you talked about some of the new divisions. Anything else on the horizon?
So really exciting for us this year is that we added the women's over 35, and as well as women's premier division, which has long been our top level of competition on the men's side. And now we have a women's premier division too. So women's rugby has really bounced back since kind of a lull during COVID, and women's rugby in the U.S. especially has taken off. So we're happy to see it coming to us too. The women's divisions actually all filled out before the men's divisions this year, which is the first time for us. And so we're excited to bring that. We're also looking just to try and build on the event, expand. We're hoping in the next few years to be able to add a youth division, whether it's U18 or 16, somewhere in that range, but trying to expand to offer more to everybody. So we can include youth, we can include the wheelchair now. We have men, women of all ages. I mean, we're trying to do more for the area and grow as a rugby tournament as well. Unfortunately, we're kind of running low on fields.
So I was going to ask
possibility of expanding. We looked at Tupper Lake, and hopefully in the next few years we can come up with the funding to do that. The tournament itself really has grown a lot, but with that is expenses too, right? So we got about $30,000 in medical expenses every year, and everything adds up to where the event's about a little more than $200,000 budget every year. So to be able to expand would be great, but we got to be able to fund the fields and the setups and all the stuff that we need to be able to do that as well. So we're working towards that goal, and hopefully we get some youth rugby going, which will kind of be our own feeder program. If we get kids coming here and they love it, then they come back when they're, playing for college teams, and someday they'll be coming back in their 50s and 60s and bringing their kids with them. So that's the goal for the future.
That's amazing. You've talked about expanding to some more fields, maybe Tupper Lake, getting more youth involved. Do you have any other big dreams for the next 5 or 10 years for the tournament?
I think it's probably just a big dream at this point, but I personally would love to see us do another event somewhere else, whether it be like traveling around New York State with youth clinics or doing another event in a different part of the country, just kind of expanding our reach and building rugby in other areas. For me, I'd love to see the youth thing where we could, have Can-Am Rugby youth clinics all over New York State and build the sport at a younger age here in the States, especially with World Cup rugby coming to the U.S. in a few years. Might be the time to kind of start teaching rugby at a younger age and building it, growing the sport all over.
That's great. Do you fundraise beyond the team's pay to play here, but do you do any other fundraising beyond that?
So, of course, we're constantly looking for sponsorships.
Okay.
Different things like that. We have a New Belgium Brewing and Fat Tire is our official beverage of Can-Am Rugby. The Hotel Saranac and the Cambria, a couple of hotels that are official lodging partners for the event. So we have partnered with North Country Sports Council, which is a relatively new group, but a great group to work with. And they've been helping us kind of find some new sponsorships along the way. Of course, we rely so heavily on sponsors in the area, but so does everybody else. So does the Winter Carnival and Tin Man and all these other events. So we are constantly looking for a way that we kind of don't have to ask for as much support from the community that we can stand on our own. But it is hard as a one weekend event. It's hard to sell yourself as a big sponsorship package when you're only happening for a few days a year. So
right.
Other than that, sponsorship is our main, fundraising effort, I guess. But we are looking for other ways in the future for sure.
That's awesome. You also have some really cool merch too. So listener, check out on their website. They've got great t-shirts, hats, other cool stuff too. So don't diss the merch. The merch is awesome too.
Yeah, Rugby Imports has been our merchandise supplier for the last few years here, and they do a great job. Of course, every year we do a souvenir t-shirt with the original Mountaineer mascot Snuffy. So that's one that everybody buys up the minute they get there because it's the souvenir for the year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we, of course, we take some pride in having our logos and our name being worn around all over the country and other parts of the world too. So
that's great. Cameron, you've talked a lot about developing and more outreach around rugby. If somebody really wants to learn about this sport, and I'll be honest, I did have to do a little bit of Googling and research. So I made sure, at least I've watched it. I've been to the tournament, but I'm not necessarily sure I understand the sport 100%. What's a good place for somebody who wants to learn a little bit more about the sport, sort of broaden their appreciation for it if they're going to come to the tournament? Where, are there good videos on YouTube? Like, where's a good place to get some good information?
So I will say this, there's no better place to learn than your local rugby club. Okay. There are rugby clubs all over the place. And if you have an interest in the sport, going out and trying it out, you learn more just doing it than anything else. For me, anyways, I did. And every rugby club I've ever been around is super inviting and welcoming to newcomers. But if that's not for you, YouTube and videos, watching the game for sure is a great way to learn it. There are so many rules and little tweaks and things about the game that it's hard to learn it all in a hurry for sure. But you can pick up the basics by watching and learning. In New York State, they offer, people, if they're really interested in learning the rules and things like that, they offer reffing programs where you can go and become a ref, which is everywhere is struggling for referees right now. So that's never a bad thing, especially for players that have kind of stepped away from the playing side of it, get into officiating. But like I said, it's just rugby is such an inviting, welcoming sport to anyone that if you really were interested in learning and figuring it all out, starting with some local rugby players is the best way to do it.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. Okay, we got a Couple of lightning round questions, scrum and done, as we call them. Who's your favorite rugby player of all time?
Man, that's a tough one. I don't know if I really truly have a favorite. I guess just because I know my wife's got to listen to this, I'd have to say she's probably my favorite to go. So
There you go.
There you
Perfect.
go. All right. What's your post-match drink of choice?
whatever's free, what they got serving at the bar will be, for me personally, it's funny actually. The last few years we've had New Belgium and Fat Tire as our sponsor, and I've really actually come to enjoy it quite a bit. That's one that I'll grab from any bar if I see it.
Very nice.
Awesome. That's awesome. What's the best advice a coach ever gave you?
Well, I don't know if it wasn't a coach, but it was a longtime player. We were on the field together, and I was young and just figuring it out, running sideline to sideline, just chasing the ball all over the place, doing everything I could. He finally grabbed me and said, "The ball's going to come back this way. Don't waste all that energy. Just stay here."
That's good advice. And you can apply that to lots of things in life. The ball's always going to come back. So just be ready for it. You mentioned, I think the Detroit team, the East Side Hyenas. I love these names. What's the most outrageous team name at Can-Am, or the craziest one you've ever heard?
Every year there's something that shocks me a little bit. That's for sure. Yeah, there's been so many of them over the years. I think one of my favorites for sure is the Old Girls with an E at the end, and they're just constantly competitive. So I'm not sure if they are old or not, but they definitely don't act like it on the field.
That's awesome. That's great. And if you can, describe Can-Am tournament in 3 words.
Family, history, competition.
Very nice.
Cool. Well, Cameron, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking time to join us and participate on your deployment. And we hope you stay safe and you can get home soon. And again, thank you for your service. We also like to end every episode of our podcast by asking our guests about their, favorite place in the Adirondacks, their insider tip. It's a way to give back to our listeners, if they're always looking for what's cool, where do the locals go, what's a great hidden gem. And it can be anything. It can be a hiking trail, it can be a microbrewery, it could be a paddle, a campground, a scenic drive. People mentioned Ausable Chasm or Top of the Park in Lake Placid or Racket River Brewing. You just can't say the Can-Am Rugby Tournament. But what would be your favorite thing or hidden gem you would share with our listeners?
I got to say, personally, definitely my favorite. Every rugby player that's listening to this, I'm sure will agree that Casa del Sol, little Mexican restaurant in Saranac Lake, is the hit and the must-stop-by place in Saranac Lake for sure.
Awesome. That's great. I have not heard that one before, so that's terrific. We will add it. And listener, will have links to everything we've talked about today, the tournaments and the places we've mentioned in our show notes. And again, Cameron, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to attending this year's tournament.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Any chance we get to talk about the event, spread the word, we jump all over it. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. And good luck.
That was really neat. I love that event.
Yeah. It's, can't say it enough. It's just so much going on. I wanted to almost jump in when he said, when he asked him the 3 words that describe the Can-Am tournament, and and fast would be a word I would use, because the games go by fast. The days go by quickly. It's just so entertaining and so much fun to do. I haven't been there in a couple of years, so I'm curious to see what their little carnival's like as well.
Yeah.
And if you're, and I think there are a lot of people that come to the Adirondacks who are camping. They're on a budget. They're trying to get the most for their vacation dollar. You could spend the whole weekend there.
Yeah.
Entertain everybody in the family, but a day, a couple hours even. I remember one year going up, and weather, I've been fortunate. I've never gone in the rain, but the weather's always been nice. And watched a few games and popped in the big slide, had I think it was a burger, and was able to get right back, just straight off the fields practically. You could almost walk. It's just so convenient for those Lake Placid fields. And then in Saranac, it's just so, it's everything's here. I mean, you can literally pretty much, walk if you had to, ride a bike. It's certainly, everything's bike.
Everything's bikeable, and it's very, the size of this tournament. That's the thing that knocks me out, is just, the number of teams that come and play, people coming up from Texas. I mean, that's amazing. And Detroit. And I just think that's really, really cool. And I liked his response to my question about, how the players perceive the Adirondacks. And I love that they come back to ski or other times of the year too. I thought that was really neat. Yeah. So it is summer in the Adirondacks. We've, like the rest of the country, we've definitely had our fair share of hot days. But the nice thing, I think, I was just on the phone, actually, speaking of Texas, I was just on the phone with our friends who have a ranch in hill country, and, it's hot there and it stays hot all around the clock. At least here we do get a little relief at night. It cools down, and I have to admit, though, I have turned on the air conditioning a couple of nights just so I could get to sleep. But it's nice, and starting to see lots of people coming up, seeing, a lot more activity on the lake. So summer is definitely here. And I don't know if I told you, I hit a deer the other night with my car. Yes. So listener, if you're out driving around at night, deers, they're moving around, and they're dumb. They're the dumbest animal. That and the turkeys.
Oh, but they're so tasty.
I do have a little bit of venison on my front right bumper, but at least the car wasn't total, but that was my first deer that I've hit. So be careful out there. All right, Steve Areno. I think that's about all we can do today. Listener, thank you for tuning in to ADK Talks. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to rate and review us on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps others discover Adirondack content. And for more exclusive insights and intel, visit our website, adktaste.com. While you're there, why not sign up for our newsletter? I mean, come on. We're bringing the news right to your inbox, and it's just once a week. We're not going to fill it up with a bunch of spam. The newsletter actually has grown a lot. I'm very encouraged to see the number of people. Every time we send a new one out, we get a bunch more subscriptions. So we must be doing something right. Steve, one thing I wanted to mention to you that I just realized last night, it's the 1-year anniversary / birthday of the ADK Talks podcast.
It is?
It is.
Wow.
I know. This marks our 32nd episode, and we've had a whole bunch of downloads. Really exciting to see that we're often ranked in the top 100 U.S. travel podcasts. So that's exciting. We were in the top 20 in Slovenia last week. So we must be doing something right there as well. So
are we still listened to in Frankfurt?
We are still listened to in Frankfurt. We have a good old Frankfurt. We have a very loyal following. I think the biggest areas where our listeners are located are in New York City, in Buffalo, Philadelphia, kind of, I think, the places you would expect. But I see listeners from all over. And I think it's more than just our direct circle of friends. So, 32 episodes and thousands of downloads later, I just think we must be doing something right. So thank you, listener, for tuning in. We appreciate you. And as Steve always like for me to mention, if you have any comments or feedback or questions, you can email us at info at adktaste.com. We love to hear from you.
Or if you just want to tell us where you're listening from.
Yeah. We love to hear from you. We've gotten some great feedback and great questions. I think we're going to do a little reader mailbag in an upcoming episode. So you've got that to look forward to, which is nice. All right, Steve Marino, have a great day. And we'll see you again next time on the ADK Talks podcast.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.